The Rangers have their first losing streak of the year, and that might not even be the worst thing that happened last night.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about the return of Josh Jung, Wyatt Langford's possible injury, and maybe the most maddening loss of the season. But before we get into all of that, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Now, the Rangers have their first losing streak of the season, 10-6 loss to the Chicago Cubbies last night, and that might not even be the worst part of what happened last night. We'll talk a little bit about Wyatt Langford's MRI, what that means, and the absolutely inexcusable way that the Rangers lost that game. But I want to focus on the few bright spots from last night, because there were some bright spots, including the return of Josh Jung. I don't know what exactly it is about my large adult son, Josh Jung, that when he is in the Rangers lineup, that's when things go well. That's when this team can hit. That's when this team can score runs. That's when this team can get, clutch hits. And just overall, the offense is gelling so much better. It's not just because he's a good hitter. He is a good hitter. That's not like some kind of shocking revelation. He's a good hitter, and he's a big part of this lineup. But there's something about his absence that just makes this lineup go cold, and things go poorly for the Rangers offense when Josh Jung is not present in that lineup. And last night, he was a home run short of the cycle. I mean, a bloop infield hit that went off the pitcher's glove for a single in the first inning. Then he had, in his first at-bat, then he had one of the luckier triples I've seen, but hey, it still counts as a triple. Also a line drive double, just a home run short of the cycle in his first game. He also had a defensive miscue in the most maddening inning of the season for the Rangers, but just getting him back in this lineup, getting the lineup fully healthy, at least for about 7 innings, was a nice thing to see. Josh Jung with that 3-hit game. He is now hitting .545 with a 1363 OPS in his 3 games so far this season. I don't think that's going to continue for the entirety of the season, but hey, it sure is nice for right now. This Rangers lineup also, just in general, they got going last night. I mean, this is an offense that scored a season-high 6 runs, including coming back against this Cubs team. Every time that they would take the lead, the Rangers would tie it back up, and if not for that just absolutely mind-bogglingly frustrating bottom of the 8th inning, the Rangers might have ended up taking the lead either in the 9th inning or in extras. Alas, that did not happen, but just seeing this offense get going was a great sign. This offense it's been a collective slump for basically everybody in this lineup, outside of Wyatt Langford, outside of Josh Smith, outside of Jonah Heim. I mean, the vast majority of this offense has just been incredibly quiet. Adolis Garcia had a great first week, but since then he's been relatively quiet. Marcus Semien has been, pretty bad. Jake Berger got a day off last night because he has been awful to start the season, and Jock Peterson has also been pretty awful to start this season offensively. But just seeing this lineup get going, get these clutch hits, a couple of both of these triples were maybe a little lucky, maybe a little bit of a favorable bounce, but hey, you still got to hit the ball hard, you still got to run it out, and they did. And this team got hits with runners in scoring position. I mean, they got clutch hits. They did. Well, they stole a base. Jonah Heim stole a base. 2 stolen bases so far this season for Jonah Heim. Who would have thought that would have been the case? I think this is just a league-wide trend. Maybe the rules that the league implemented, maybe it's not just the Rangers that aren't catching anybody stealing. I mean, we saw Mitch Garver had a stolen base in the game against the Astros last night for the Seattle Mariners. Maybe this whole stolen base bonanza is just going to be a trend and nobody could ever catch anybody stealing because, again, the Cubs ran rampant on this Rangers team. 4 stolen bases, 2 by Pete Crow Armstrong, one of them by John Birdie, one of them by Dansby Swanson, and of course, a lot of defensive lapses by this Rangers team as well. But 3 for 11 with runners in scoring position. The Rangers haven't had a game with 11 at-bats with runners in scoring position in a long time. And another note to the positive, I think that Corey Seager is back to, is almost back to himself. I know he only had a couple hits in this one, including a single hit at 103.6 miles an hour. He also had a flyout that would have been a home run in 8 of 30 Major League stadiums. That was right before Wyatt Langford's home run in this one. That was at 105 miles an hour. It's just looking more like Corey Seager last night, the Corey Seager that we all know and we have grown to appreciate. I said on yesterday's show that the reason I don't think this offense is just going to be terrible all season long is because, guys that are that good, guys like Marcus Semien, like Corey Seager, like Jock Peterson, these are established veterans that have set the bar for their performance. We know what they are. They aren't going to turn into some new version of themselves and just suddenly become absolutely horrendous or stay this bad for very much longer. And Seager looks like he is working out of that and trending in the right direction. And Wyatt Langford had himself a fantastic game. If not for Josh Jung's performance, then, maybe Wyatt Langford's was even better, getting his 4th home run of the season, his first double of the season on a ball down the line, and using that speed to just barely beat out the throw to second base. But hey, he beat it out all the same, and that home run, 109 miles an hour off the bat. Wyatt Langford has been making some very, very hard contact to start this season so far. A hard hit rate of nearly half the balls that he's hitting are hard hit, 47.1%. That puts him in the top third of the league in terms of his hard hit percentage. The barrel rate is near the top quarter of the league. The expected slugging is in the top 15% of the league. The expected WOBA in the top 20% of the league. I mean, this is the Wyatt Langford that we all thought that he could be. This is the Wyatt Langford that is pushing that ceiling higher and higher and higher. And also defensively, his outs above average. He's in the top 10% of the league in terms of defense, and he's doing that in left field. Now, I would like him to play some center, especially after that misplay by Leody Taveras, to maybe also get Josh Smith some more at-bats in the outfield, because I would much rather have Wyatt Langford in center than Josh Smith, because just a little bit more fleet of foot Wyatt Langford is than, pretty much anybody else on this team. But just seeing this offense get going was important, and I got to give credit. I got to own up and eat some crow. Not eat Pete Crow Armstrong, but Patrick Corbin. A nice debut. Yes, it was 4 innings and 3 runs allowed, but for the situation, for what the Rangers needed, and for what he was coming into, the Rangers signed him at the very, very end of spring training. He didn't get any spring training starts, and he didn't get any starts in the minor leagues either. Just coming in basically cold to do his best to keep the Rangers in this game. And you know what? He did it. 4 innings, 3 runs. And for a guy who didn't pitch in all of spring training, who didn't get any kind of tune-up start, I mean, this is about as solid as you can ask. I mean, 74 pitches saved the bullpen from having to do a full bullpen game, and yeah, it wasn't exceptional. Yeah, this is a little bit of what we might be getting if Patrick Corbin is a mainstay in this rotation. I don't think he's going to have a 6.75 ERA for the whole season, but somewhere in the high 4s or maybe high 5s is it. But he will munch those innings. He will get some outs to allow some hard contact. He didn't have any strikeouts in those 4 innings, and he walked 2. Not ideal, but hey, that'll get the job done. It is not Patrick Corbin's fault that the Rangers lost this game. It's not. I thought that might be the case heading in, and you know what? I got to tip my hat to him. This is a difficult situation that he is being asked to come in and, off of just a couple of, exhibition games in spring training where he was able to kind of tune himself up. I believe he was up to 85 pitches in those exhibition games, but 4 innings, 3 runs in a game where you were coming in with basically no spring training. I mean, look what happened to Jordan Montgomery last year when he signed at the very, very end of spring training, and how he came into the season and how he ended the season. I mean, it was a disastrous season for Jordan Montgomery, who, let's be honest, is a much better pitcher than Patrick Corbin. Was a much better pitcher in the year before he joined that new team with basically no spring training. He was coming off of that World Series run where he was incredible and a really, really good year overall. And then he comes in and he's awful. He was just absolutely obliterated and wasn't really able to, mop up those innings in a way that you would very much like at least your number 5 starter, which right now Patrick Corbin is. This is a hat tip, good job, Patrick Corbin. It's not the prettiest start. It's not, 6 innings, 11 strikeouts, and of perfect baseball. No, that's not what you're asking Patrick Corbin to do. That's not what you're paying Patrick Corbin to do. You're paying him to save your bullpen from being completely overtaxed. And the bullpen threw 4 innings in this one. Because even though the Rangers offense was cooking, the bullpen did not do its job, and neither did the defense. We're talking about how this team let itself down in this massively disappointing loss right after this. This show is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios are one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snackin' and get crackin' with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Shout out to the editors making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, we'll be back and talking about this series finale Wednesday afternoon against those Cubbies. We'll see if the Rangers can pull out at least one win and not get swept. This is the first serious loss of the season for the Rangers, and it was a maddening loss for sure. But the worst part of it may be an injury to Wyatt Langford. Hopefully not, but it might end up being the case. Wyatt Langford was pulled from the game after that 7th inning strikeout where he felt a little bit of tightness in his right side. Now, he missed 3 weeks in spring training due to a left oblique strain. Bochy said that he was just precautionary with this. Wyatt Langford had been dealing with this issue for at least a couple of days, better part of a week at this point, and Bruce Bochy, having managed in San Francisco for a long time, he knows that soft tissue injuries can be made worse by the extreme cold than when it's in the 30s, and that is your young superstar, and he is just experiencing a little bit of discomfort. You pull that guy real quick, and you say, hey, we are not going to risk it. We are not going to make things worse. We're going to figure out what exactly is wrong, and we're going to throw Kevin Pillar out there in left field to finish this game. That's why Kevin Pillar was the one who was batting at the end of this game and not Wyatt Langford. The Rangers will be giving him an MRI today. Hopefully we will know more news by the time you're listening to this of whether it is an actual oblique strain. He said it's not nearly as severe as what he was dealing with in spring training, which was about the mildest version of an actual oblique strain that you can deal with. He was out for 3 weeks. Hopefully that's not the case with this. He said hopefully a couple of days off and he will end up feeling right as rain, which I haven't seen the lineups yet for this afternoon game, but I'm assuming Wyatt Langford is not going to be in there. They're just going to give him an abundance of caution. And, if you can give him 1 game off, that's actually 2 days off because the Rangers have a day off on Thursday and a day of travel. Then, especially when he is dealing with this kind of an issue, you feel good about doing that. You would absolutely do that, even though it's against a tough lefty, and Wyatt Langford crushes lefties. You definitely want to be more cautious as opposed to trotting him back out there and making the injury or turning what is just a little bit of a nick into an actual injury and an IL trip. Hopefully he's going to be just fine, and you'll know more about this as you're listening to it. But if that turns into something more, that is a huge concern for this Rangers offense that has just been ice cold as of late. And even though the offense did its job, the defense and the bullpen really didn't. 3 errors in this game, including Jonah Heim, an error trying to throw out Pete Crow Armstrong, turning a steal of second base into the fastest man on the team, one of the fastest men in the league, on third base. Then there was the error by Josh Jung, a fielder's choice, a ball that took a really tricky hop on him. Honestly, it's a hard error to charge to him, but not putting his body in front of the ball, letting the ball bounce up on him and into the outfield. And what could have maybe been, probably should have been a routine ground ball ending with runners on second and third. That's where you feel like, okay, that is a legitimately charged error. Just a very unlucky inning for Chris Martin, who came in a tie game in the 8th inning and gave up 4 unearned runs. But that inning started with an unacceptable play by Leody Taveras. It was a hard hit ball to center field that was basically in his glove. I don't know what the heck happened with Leody on that ball, but that was a 2-base error, a ball that absolutely should have been caught and just wasn't, and turned into a bit of a spiraling effect before ending up in a 4-run inning. It was just an unacceptable level of defensive lapse in such a clutch situation, such a crucial situation. For the most part, Chris Martin did his job. He only allowed 1 hit, and he allowed 1 walk, which was an intentional walk, which was intentionally walking the guy who's been one of, if not the best hitters on the planet to start this season in Kyle Tucker. And so that just ended up spiraling into a 4-run inning, and it was just an unacceptable level of badness. It was just, you can't have that in that situation. You just can't. But as much vitriol as he deserves for that play, Leody Taveras, he doesn't deserve the entirety of the blame in this one. Even if you want to give him credit, give him the blame for all 4 runs that scored in that inning, that's a bit much. But even if you want to do that, I mean, the Rangers gave up 10 runs in this game. It wasn't just on the Leody Taveras. If you want to give him, that 1 run, or even 2 runs, you give him the run that scored because of the 2-base error, fine. Yeah, that's definitely on him. You want to give him the run at first, that was the intentional walk to Kyle Tucker, because the Rangers wouldn't have intentionally walked Kyle Tucker if there wasn't the runner on second base. Yeah, fine. I get that. But there were 4 runs that scored in that inning. There were 2 more that Leody Taveras didn't have anything to do with. And you also have to give him credit for the play that he made on a ball with an expected batting average over 800, a fly out of Dansby Swanson in that 6th inning with the bases loaded. 104.5 miles an hour off the bat, an 850 expected batting average, and Leody Taveras made that play. He did. But he doesn't get to get all the credit or all the blame in this one, because the rest of this bullpen, it didn't do its job either. That 1 single that Chris Martin allowed, that was not a great pitch to Dansby Swanson that allowed 2 of those runs to score. And then Hobie Milner comes in to face a lefty, Pete Crow Armstrong, who has been very bad against lefties, and he comes in that clutch spot with runners on second and third, and it goes down 2-0 to him. He has 2 pitches that aren't really competitive pitches, a couple of sweepers, away, where if Dansby was taking some massive hacks, they aren't even close to the strike zone. Just pound the zone. Get ahead of this guy. He is not seeing lefties well. Throw him a strike, but when you go down 2-0 and then you throw that sinker towards the middle of the plate, he's allowed to sit on the pitch and knows what's coming, and he had a pretty darn hard hit ball for a 2-run single that ended up trying to being stretched into a double and ended that inning. But by then the damage was done. The Rangers down 4 runs at that point. And it wasn't just him. I mean, Mark Church had a bad inning, and his defense really, it kept him afloat in that. A couple of walks, including a double. If there was a faster runner on first base when Kyle Tucker hit that double, then it would have been another run scored. He wouldn't have had a shutout inning. I mean, heck, even Sean Armstrong, who had probably the cleanest inning of any of these relievers, he had a batter hit, and he also had a walk, but he struck out a batter and didn't allow any hits, and so that was as close to a clean inning as the Rangers had. But Jacob Webb also not a good inning. I mean, sure, some of those hits didn't look particularly hard hit. They looked a little lucky, but he allowed 4 hits in an inning, and 3 of those ended up scoring, and all of those hits, the vast majority of those hits, were hard hit balls. They were not just little bloops and dinks and dumps. They were balls that had expected batting averages well over 300. Those are balls that should have been singles, and they were. And the Rangers had just clawed back in that game to kind of make it a tied game. And then he gives up 3 runs. The Rangers are down 6-3 heading into the top of the 6th inning. I mean, this bullpen in general just did not do its job. It was a lot of mess, a lot of just lapses in judgment, lapses in defense, lapses in pitch sequencing, and just everything. Honestly, this is just a bad game. This is a bad game for the bullpen, bad game for the defense, and a bad loss to have. And so, yeah, that one play by Leody Taveras, it's the most maddening of all of these, but it wasn't entirely his fault. I get hating on a certain player on your favorite team. That's just kind of a weird universal sports fandom thing to do. And I am a certified hater myself. It was a rigorous test to go through the board certification to get my certified hater badge. But I am a certified hater, so I know that my hate is qualified. You got to make sure your hate is qualified. And, well, it doesn't have to be rational necessarily, but at least a little bit rational, a little bit earned. Direct your hate to the place where it needs it, the place where it's deserved. Mainly that other team in Texas down south that deserves quite a bit of hate. Every bit of hate towards them by any fan base is completely rational. But this was just a wholehearted, totalitarian tank of a game that's absolutely maddening way to extend a losing streak, to have your first losing streak of the season, to have your first series loss of the season, to do it in this way while using the best parts of your bullpen, puts the Rangers in a difficult spot in this series finale. Coming up, we're talking about that and a little bit of roster manipulation the Rangers will be taking part in after this. This show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money, you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared expenses and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. I'll be back on Friday's show, probably talking a little bit about Wyatt Langford and a possible extension. Hopefully by then we will know that he is healthy and everything's fine and it won't be in poor taste to do that. Probably talk a little bit about what's going on in the minor leagues so far this season before the Rangers head to Seattle. Now, one more thing on this offense and just the overall offensive struggles. Actually, there'll probably end up being a few more things on this offense. But with Josh Peterson specifically, I mean, he has been a truly abysmal offensively to start the season, hitting .094 with a .216 on base percentage. At least he's getting on base a little bit. At least he's getting, a few walks. But an OPS of .341, that is the lowest on the team. And the thing that makes me concerned about Josh, because I went and looked at his expected numbers. I mean, his bat speed's fine, so it's not like he's just old and he's suddenly lost all athleticism. He's squaring it up at a decent rate. He's chasing around middle of the road, middle of the league. Swinging and missing and striking out around middle of the league. The walk rate is a little bit above league average. But the thing that makes me a little concerned about Josh Peterson, about him, pressing, I think he's putting a lot of pressure on himself for sure to be the one to step up and save this offense and give this offense, an explosion like it needs. But the fact that he was one of the first ones to use a torpedo bat on this Ranger squad, the fact that, after basically a week, he's like, I need me a torpedo bat. That surprised me and that confused me and that worried me, honestly, a little bit. Now, if you don't know about the torpedo bats, where have you been? The basic concept is taking the heavy part of the bat and moving it down further, more towards the label, more towards the middle of the bat, as opposed to it being towards the end, the thick part. It looks a little bit more like a bowling pin, and it had been used by other teams beside the Yankees. It got popular with the Yankees because they had a game where they hit 9 home runs because the Brewers were just throwing meatball after meatball after meatball, and also they have Aaron Judge on their team, and he hits quite a few home runs. The other players on the team also are capable of hitting some home runs. It is a perfectly legal bat, There is nothing wrong with it. I'm very surprised that baseball hadn't, thought to move the barrel a little bit for specific batters before. I'm honestly genuinely shocked that they hadn't tried something that seems as simple. Put the big part of the bat, reinforce where hitters are actually hitting it. Now, Aaron Judge is not using a torpedo bat. Shohei Ohtani is not using a torpedo bat. Corey Seager is not using a torpedo bat. And those guys, those established hitters, Aaron Judge said the spiciest thing he's ever said. He's the most boring quote we've seen alive. And for him, it was a very, very spicy quote. When asked if he was why he wasn't using a torpedo bat, he said, well, I think my results speak for themselves. And, for the guys like Corey Seager, like Shohei Ohtani, and like Jock Peterson, who has been one of the most consistent hitters in baseball for the last decade, why would they change things? Why would they switch things up? They have been very, very good hitters for their careers, swinging a normal type of bat. And when Jock Peterson, after a week, is saying, I need a new type of bat because I'm so worried about my struggles, that concerns me. He's hitting the ball hard enough. He's mostly hitting it right on the ground. It's not like he's not hitting it hard at all. His average exit velocity is in the top half of baseball. 90.2 miles an hour, 58th percentile of baseball. He's not just weakly, hitting it on the label, breaking bats and just making terrible contact. He's not. He's also not striking out at some crazy rate. He's not. He's just not hitting the ball in the air. The launch angle is way, way down. His average launch angle last year, when he had a great season, was at 16.9 degrees. Nice. It's down significantly from that. It is at 9.7, below 10 degrees, which means he's hitting the ball, he's making good contact. It's just going right down into the ground, which more often than not results in outs, as opposed to extra base hits, fly balls that are pulled with authority that turn into home runs and things like that. That's why he hasn't hit a home run. He's been hitting the ball right into the ground. He's been making good swing decisions. He hasn't been, having a crazy strikeout games. He had a couple of strikeouts in this one at 0 for 4. Not a great day, but not, a game like, or even a series like Leody Taveras had that first series of the year where he just looked absolutely in a tizzy and couldn't touch anything. Jock Peterson hasn't looked like that, but the results have been very, very bad. And him making that kind of a drastic change to his, something that has worked for him for so long, makes me a little concerned that he's panicking. He's putting a little bit too much pressure on himself. I feel very confident that Corey Seager's about to start to break out of this slump. And adding Josh Jung back to this lineup, I think, will help. Jake Burger is too good a hitter to be too bad this long. Jake Burger is doing a similar type of thing of just making hard contact but hitting the ball right into the ground. He could also stand to walk a little bit more to just not swing at every single pitch. He walked on his first plate appearance as a Texas Ranger, Jake Burger did, and I thought, oh, there's a guy who never ever walked and struck out a decent bit. But maybe if he starts walking now, he'll get better pitches and make better swing decisions. And so far, that was the last walk that Jake Burger had, was that first plate appearance of the season. He got a day off last night. I'm assuming he will be in there against Shota Imanaga in this series finale because he hits lefties well. Jock Peterson will almost certainly not be in there, although Jock Peterson so far this year, he's had 3 plate appearances against lefties, 35 against righties, and he's walked twice against lefties. Now, that other plate appearance was a ground into a double play, but still, it's not time to just completely panic on Jock Peterson because this lineup is so deep and so talented and has such a track record of being good. Eventually, not all your bats are going to be hot at the same time, but to have so many of them be cold at the same time means that eventually, the run of probabilities, most of this lineup is going to get hot at a similar time, or at least get back to average. Usually you're hot or cold. You're yes, then you're no. Sorry, I just burst into Katy Perry lyrics. But still, eventually this lineup is going to get going because it's not just a bunch of rookies who, their success has been, they had a couple of nice months in 1 year and they're actually not that talented. No, these guys have proven it over the long run. Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim, Jock Peterson, Kyle Higashioka. These are certified good big leaguers, and they will figure it out. It might take a minute, but they will figure it out, and I think that they will figure it out at a similar time, to the point where we will see this lineup start to look more like that juggernaut offense that we were hoping it would be in the past. Now, in order to bring Josh Jung up on the Rangers' active roster, they had to make some moves, and I had this written in my notes for yesterday's show. It would look so smart if I said that. I talked about maybe Caleb Bushley coming up if the Rangers didn't want to stick with Gerson Garabito as that long man, because he had been just pretty bad in the long man role. I mean, he was come in to kind of mop up innings and keep the Rangers maybe in games, and, well, he very much didn't do that in his first 2 outings of the season. That blowout loss against the Reds, and also a 7-0 drubbing against the Cubs on Monday. And so they brought up Caleb Bushley. They ended up putting Cody Bradford on the 60-day IL. I'm more than a little worried about that. I'm worried that the Rangers are just going to sit on this elbow inflammation and hope that it heals on its own. And then at some point in the next month or so, we'll see, oh, well, it's not getting better. Actually, Cody Bradford has to have Tommy John surgery. And then instead of missing 1 year, he'll end up missing basically 2 years. And it's the right thing that you can't just jump into every guy's elbow that starts having elbow pain and do Tommy John surgery. But it feels like so often, like the case with Jacob deGrom. I mean, he sat out for a month. He was on the IL at the end of April, and then they didn't have Tommy John surgery until June, and it didn't get any better. And then that was just a month of just sitting and waiting for what had been, basically 2 years. It had been inevitable for Jacob deGrom at that point. I'm hoping that it doesn't end up being the case with Cody Bradford, that this is more of a precautionary thing. But, I mean, the Rangers would have had to make some kind of 40-man move. I'm surprised that this was the one that they made. I think there are other guys on the 40-man roster that, could be designated for assignment. I don't really know why the Rangers are so committed to Luis Crivello. They must see something that they really, really like in him. I've talked with my Mariners friends who talked with the people who had seen Luis Crivello in their system. They're like, I don't really know what's going on there. I don't think that Gerson Garabito is such an integral part to this Rangers long-term plans. I don't think that Cole Winn is necessarily such an integral part to these long-term plans that they couldn't have made a spot there to bring up a different long man reliever. But it's just a little bit concerning at this point. And the Rangers ended up sending Ezekiel Duran down to AAA as opposed to Jonathan Ornelison. Right now, that's the right move. I still have some hope that Zeke can figure it out. But when Zeke is not able to hit at all, not even able to hit fastballs, which he has crushed so far in his career, he just looks all out of sorts, and the defense is not playing well either. He already has a couple of errors on throws that he should be making. So keeping Jonathan Ornelas as that final hitter on the roster, it makes sense. It is the logical thing to do. And I had that written in my notes that I would rather have Jonathan Ornelas at this point than Zeke Duran, but alas, I didn't verbalize it and look extra smart before the Rangers did exactly that. Unfortunately, just losing a little bit of my smarts, a little bit of my smart game here at the end. But you know what? This was a frustrating loss. Hopefully the Rangers can bounce back. Hopefully tomorrow I'm talking to you about a gem from Tyler O'Malley, an offensive explosion. Corey Seager figured things out. Everyone figuring things out, and everyone's, pooping sunshine and rainbows and feeling much better about this baseball team after 2 incredibly frustrating days. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.